Right now, nearly 1 in 3 people on this planet has an immune system that attacks something completely harmless. Pollen, peanuts, dust, your own joints. 100 years ago, this was rare. Today, it's normal. Something changed, and it wasn't your genes. Your DNA hasn't meaningfully shifted in the last 100 years. Evolution doesn't move that fast. But your immune system has become something almost unrecognizable compared to your great-great-grandparents'. It's not weaker. It's not broken in the way a virus breaks something. It's confused. And the story of how it got that way starts with a doctor who wasn't even looking for it. In 1989, an epidemiologist named David Strachan sat down with data on more than 17,000 British children. He was trying to understand hay fever. What he found didn't fit anything he expected. Children with more older siblings had significantly lower rates of allergies. Not slightly lower, dramatically lower. The more kids crammed into a household, the fewer allergies showed up. At first, this looked like nonsense. More people means more germs, more colds, more exposure to sickness. Shouldn't that make things worse? Strachan proposed something almost backward. He called it the hygiene hypothesis. His idea was that early exposure to dirt, germs, and infections from siblings actually trained the immune system. It taught the body what was dangerous and what wasn't. Kids with fewer siblings, fewer infections, cleaner environments grew up with immune systems that never got that training. And an untrained immune system doesn't sit quietly. It starts misfiring. It starts treating pollen like a parasite and peanuts like poison. For years, scientists treated this as an interesting side note. Then they started looking at something even stranger: parasites. For most of human history, and for essentially the entire evolutionary history of our species before that, human beings carried parasites, not occasionally, constantly. Worms, in particular, hookworms, whipworms, roundworms, living inside almost every human gut on Earth for tens of thousands of years. This wasn't rare. It was the baseline condition of being human. And here's what almost nobody talks about. Your immune system didn't just tolerate these parasites. It evolved around them. Certain classes of immune cells, the same ones responsible for allergic reactions today, appear to have developed specifically to manage parasitic worms. Immunologists call this the old friends hypothesis, an extension of Strachan's original idea. The theory holds that these parasites, along with certain bacteria found in soil and unprocessed food, weren't just things your immune system learned to fight. They were partners. Organisms your immune defenses relied on to stay properly calibrated, the way a thermostat relies on a working sensor. Then, in the space of about 100 years, we eliminated them. Modern sanitation, clean water, antiparasitic medication, indoor living, we got rid of hookworms, and by almost every measure, humanity became healthier for it. Nobody is arguing we should bring parasites back, but something got lost in that trade. The immune system that spent hundreds of thousands of years calibrating itself against these organisms suddenly had nothing left to calibrate against. And a system that evolved to always have an enemy doesn't just stand down when the enemy disappears. It goes looking for a new one. In 2003, researchers actually tested this directly. Scientists studying patients with severe ulcerative colitis, an autoimmune condition where the immune system attacks the lining of the intestine, deliberately infected volunteers with hookworm larvae. In multiple small trials, patients' symptoms improved. Their out-of-control immune response calmed down once it had something legitimate to focus on. It sounds almost unbelievable, doctors giving patients parasites on purpose, but the results kept showing the same pattern. An immune system with a real job to do stopped inventing enemies. And the data on where this leaves us now is hard to ignore. Autoimmune diseases, conditions where your body attacks its own tissue, have been rising sharply for decades across every developed nation on Earth. Type 1 diabetes, multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, celiac disease, rheumatoid arthritis, all of them increasing, not because more doctors are looking for them, but because the rates themselves keep climbing. Allergic conditions have followed the same curve. Asthma rates in industrialized countries have more than doubled since the 1960s. Peanut allergies in children have tripled since the 1990s. This isn't one disease getting more common. It's an entire category of illness defined by the immune system attacking something it shouldn't, expanding everywhere modern hygiene has taken hold. And the pattern maps almost perfectly onto geography. Autoimmune and allergic conditions are dramatically rarer in rural farming communities, especially ones still in regular contact with livestock, soil, and unprocessed environments. Children raised on traditional farms, exposed constantly to animal microbes and dirt from infancy, have a fraction of the allergy and asthma rates of children raised in sanitized urban households a few miles away. Same genetics in many studied populations. Same country, same air, technically. Completely different rates of a disease category that was almost unheard of 2 centuries ago. There's a word for what's happening here that doctors don't use very often outside of academic papers: immune dysregulation.
It's a clinical way of saying your body has lost its sense of what deserves a fight. For hundreds of thousands of years, your immune system operated inside a war it always understood. Dangerous parasites in one direction, dangerous bacteria in another. It knew the shape of the enemy because the enemy never really changed. Then, in a handful of decades, we won that war almost completely. And nobody thought to ask what happens to a soldier with no war left to fight. The answer, it turns out, is that it doesn't stand down. It looks for something, anything. A protein in peanuts, a strand of pollen, the lining of your own gut, your own joints, your own thyroid. The immune system doesn't know the difference between an old enemy and an innocent bystander once its only remaining instruction is fight. So the next time your eyes water at pollen or your throat closes around a food that should be harmless, understand what you're actually looking at. It's not a system that stopped working, it's a system that's still fighting a war that ended a century ago and never got the message. We spent hundreds of thousands of years building an immune system perfectly calibrated for a world full of enemies. Then, in the space of a few generations, we removed almost all of them and called it progress. Your body is still standing guard. It just doesn't remember anymore what it was guarding against.